Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany Benitez. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. Welcome to Women in Tech Trailblazers. We are back for another incredible episode with another incredible female guest. We are here today and we're going to be talking about a topic that I know is near and dear to my heart, and it's finding and using your voice. I think often as women, that's not always the easiest. I'm making a general statement. Some of us are, more familiar and comfortable with that, but I think it's an important message that from an audience, it impacts everyone in some way, shape, or form. And so I have the amazing pleasure of bringing Amanda to the show today. So Amanda Di Dio is the co-founder of Optimistic Design and a seasoned program leader with over a decade of experience guiding digital innovations across sectors like education, healthcare, and social impact. Known for her ability to lead high-performing cross-functional teams and engage senior stakeholders. Amanda has partnered with organizations such as Gates Foundation and Renaissance Learning to drive clarity, alignment, and execution. And she's often brought in as a trusted strategic partner, valued for her ability to translate complex challenges into actionable plans and build the relationships, because relationships are key to everything, that make progress possible. So, Amanda, welcome to our show. We are so excited to have you here.
Hi, Tiffany. Thank you so much. I feel really excited and a true pleasure to be able to talk about this specific topic and my experience.
Great. So I'm thrilled about the conversation I've had. So just transparently, Amanda and I have got to have a previous conversation where I was like, you're incredible for what we're doing here. So the topic, as you know, and main theme for our podcast is really around authenticity. I think we throw the term around a lot across the industry. It's one of the buzzwords, like authenticity, be your authentic self. But I always start out the episode asking, because that means something different to all of us, right? And there's not like a right or wrong answer. There's not a perfect answer, but I want to know, what does authenticity mean to you?
I think authenticity means, for me personally, leading truly with empathy and curiosity. It means being comfortable, not always having the answers. And what I have truly hope that when I show up in spaces, that I am able to create a space where people can be their true selves when they show up to work, creating that environment for others to be their authentic selves. And I think in the space of technology, especially with a paradigm that has come from Silicon Valley of this idea that we need to move fast and break things, built on, predominantly white male perspectives, that it is truly a opportunity to say that's not enough. And I think that is part of my values of showing up and being my authentic self, of realizing that is not enough. And we absolutely need to be more deeply curious and empathetic as humans building products to have that value be the same table stakes as the output itself.
Absolutely love that. And I loved a few keywords. Like you said, a bunch of amazing things, but I love that you said ingrained, because I think once something is truly ingrained in you, it almost becomes part of like who you are and how you naturally operate. So you don't have to figure out, okay, am I going to show up in this room authentically today, right? It's ingrained in who you are. You've been intentional. And sometimes it's a journey to get there. Like we may not start out our little girl selves. Oh, actually, I think we do. And then I think we get demolished by so many things in this life and the world that kind of takes some of that away from us. So as we find our journey back to it, I think it becomes like part of who you are, right? And it's how you show up and operate. I really love, I shared your bio and all the incredible things that you've done, but I want you to talk to us a little bit about your career journey and kind of what pursued you to take that path, because we all have different paths. And I think a lot as women, we're like comparing ourselves, like she took this path, and like, should I take that path, or am I less than because I decided this other path? And you have an incredible path. So I just want to share you to share a little bit with us about that.
Yeah. So I started my career out as a project manager at a small full service agency in New York at the kind of height of the digital transformation boom, when companies were rapidly moving from B2B to B2C and truly investing in their web presence, digital marketing, creating software as a service, the days of creating mobile apps. It was like the infancy of that being an actual thing when the iPhone dropped. And so it was a crash course for me into this completely new world of technology. And I think that's where I truly found my footing in project management, where I was able to be a sponge and soaking up pretty much anything that was surrounding this emerging technology space, between client services and account management, cross-functional teamwork, and truly understanding the different ways of adopting delivery frameworks. And I think what I really found my passion and what I loved about being that role of a project manager, a product manager, was the complexity of it all. Because it wasn't just about shipping a product, it was navigating all those moving parts, which is the personalities, the processes that really make, I think, great work possible, and inspired me and continues to inspire me today to think about the human side of delivery. There's a deep layer of behavioral science embedded in this work, and that success in and of itself doesn't just come from a strong process or a well-defined scope. Those are great and very crucial to the work that I do, but I think what really the success is building trust. It's fostering effective communication. It's creating psychologically safe environments where people can be seen and supported and heard. And so at the end of the day, I think what continues to draw me again to this career path and be present in these spaces is that deep problem solving and ability to be a partner and a collaborator and create a people-centered practice.
I really love that, because I was talking last night to a group, a program I run called Innovate Her, and it's all people that are exploring taking this path into technology. Mm-hmm. And they're in the data path, and so they were, learning about Power BI. And I kind of paused the speaker for a second, because what I wanted them to understand is, like, you're looking at all these ways to visualize data, and we're telling you that it tells a story, but ultimately it boils down to relationship. Like, how well do you actually know your business? How well do you know the stakeholders? Like, how much of a relationship and trust have you built? I think in most areas and companies that I've seen, so it's more of a general thing versus like a one place thing, is that technology and business remain these two siloed groups that rarely speak the same language. So we look for the few unicorn people, and honestly, like, a lot of project program end up being those unicorn people, because they understand the technology side, they also understand the business side, and they can speak both languages. And we are moving, more and more companies are pushing this way of working that we're calling business as self-service. So I'm not sure if you've heard that. It's kind of an industry buzz term right now, but it's a direction that most corporations are going for sure. And so what that doesn't mean is that business is going to wake up tomorrow and be technologists, okay? But what it does mean is that our siloed groups of technology that business is continuously waiting on our roadmaps and the ability to help, is that we will be mostly dispersed. I think there will be a few groups like architecture that will still remain, but we'll be dispersed and implanted into the business. And when that happens, what that means is that if you can't speak to the business, if you can't speak their language, if you don't understand their strategy, then you become, right, not a great asset. And so I love that you brought that up as part of your journey, and that it is essential, regardless of what your title or role is, building those relationships and that trust. And honestly, that comes from using your voice. Like, I can't trust you if I don't know you. I can't trust you if, like, what you're telling me I don't understand. And that also takes some intentional effort, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. I want to know a little bit more. You talked a little bit kind of about like the white male dominated pieces. Like, have you personally, in your journey and in your path in technology, have you encountered any gender bias, even if it was subconscious, or, have you encountered any of that, and really, how did you navigate through?
I think early on in my pursuit of this role, which is inherently administrative in its, like, beginnings a junior role of a project manager. And I think that the evolution of my ability to grow in that role and become more strategic and hone in harder skill sets was this kind of expectation that naturally started to evolve in spaces where my role was the glue work, and that a lot of the softer skills that came with that territory of being effective in my role, like taking on interpersonal dynamics, or stepping in as the caretaker role in some instances, and blunting a lot of that emotional layer on top of delivering and really functioning in my day-to-day work and managing large teams and scopes and stakeholders, that I felt like I did not have the opportunity to set a boundary when those came up, because I didn't want to be perceived or seen as not being able to do the job. And that those roles in project and program management, especially in male dominated spaces where my teams were predominantly male engineers or predominantly male creatives, that a lot of the offset of in between invisible work fell on me. And I realized through different intervention points with folks who gave me permission to say no, that was a powerful, that had a powerful impact on me. For someone to say, hey, you don't need to take that on, and that is not the best use of your time. You should be focused on the things that you are responsible to deliver on. The rest is for you and your team to disperse and the navigating those other aspects of the things you feel like are inherently being put on you, and sometimes the invisible behavior that is being put on you, right? And I thought that was powerful, not just as a gift to be given that permission to think differently, but also the ability now that I have to give others that permission to say, hey, there's a boundary and a line, because that allowed for us as a team and for others to build a skill set to navigate on their own. And I thought, throughout my career, and it's still happening today, that there are implicit sort of biases that kind of happen in the roles that we play as women and as caretakers. So yeah, I think that feels like the one that has been really.
Before we jump back in, a quick thank you to Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas for being part of this journey. We cannot thank them enough. They continue to create space for women to grow, connect, and lead in tech. Let's get back to the conversation.
Has really impacted itself on me, that I still see show up today. I am so curious how the role of AI automation in some of these spaces of like your note taker or project management AI tools are maybe helping to close some of that gap. But yeah, I think it was omnipresent in the beginning of my career, that most of those softer skills and those caretaker sort of attributes that are usually unrecognized and unrewarded. And a lot of times it's sort of like you just are the duck paddling with the cool, calm, collected on the top. That felt kind of that sort of imbalance between my role and the more male predominantly driven engineering roles.
Well, I love that you said that someone gave you permission. And, it's like sometimes it's not even like we're waiting for permission. We just don't know that we could, or that we should, or that it's possible. Like, I think we use a lot in the tech industry the term of art of the possible, usually referring to solutions. But I think that I love that you said that someone gave you permission. But my favorite part wasn't just that. It was that you then acted in that. And you set an example, and you turn around, because essentially without you even directly saying it, you then give other people permission to do that, especially as women, right? Like we're looking at like, how is this being handled? Especially earlier in our careers, we're looking to other women that are further along in our careers. And like, I always say that I wasn't mentored by a lot of females because, I'm mid-40s, like no shame there. And so back then, if we think there are barely any leaders now that are females, it was even less. And they were trying to figure out how to wear all the hats and how to balance everything. And then dealing with a lot of things that we're talking about, even at a different level. And so very few were able to spare the time to mentor. And then when they did, they could only share what they knew, right? Which was like, don't be too loud. Don't wear too many colors. Don't wear red lipstick. Don't wear red heel. And again, we can only teach what we know and what we've been taught. So hanging on to some of these very powerful things that not only free us and give us permission, but also then turn around and do that for other people is essential. And so I really, really love that you share that. Okay, so speaking of using your voice, finding your voice, which is so incredibly powerful, can you share a moment when, I think at some point we've all felt invisible in some way, shape, or form? And can you, remember an exact moment where you realized the power of your voice, where you once felt invisible?
Yeah, I have a pivotal moment where I often think about what would have happened if I didn't speak up, and how would have that changed the way I perceived the value of my voice and if it was needed. And every quarter our product team would have quarterly business reviews where it was a shared space for learning across team leads to reflect on the success of a shipped deliverable, right? And majority of the people in that room were really intimidating. They were engineering leads, they were key decision makers, sometimes they were even client stakeholders. And a lot of the role that I took in being in that space was to sit back and take notes and be quiet and to observe and not necessarily share the wisdom and the things that I had learned that could truly make an impact on the trajectory forward. And I remember sitting in the room with a lot of my other peers on our team as well, and hearing the conversation kind of circle around a problem that I had faced and a solution that I had already put in place and a success of that solution that I had metrics to back the impact of that. And I was sitting on that moment of, well, I need to get the courage to say something and interject and share what I had learned, the impact that I had made. And if I don't, I might just continue to perpetuate this feeling of feeling like I'm not strategic and that my voice isn't valued or needed. And so I spoke up and shared what I learned and the path forward and the way that I had solved it. And it will fundamentally change how we deliver a successful product in the future because it was a pretty big, sticky issue. And I was surprised by the response I got. And people were asking questions. It shifted the entire trajectory of the rest of that conversation and also gave me the courage after that meeting to continue to think strategically. It inspired me to go into the role of not just delivering as I was, but to be able to sit on a higher altitude of strategy. And it gave me confidence and validation. And that validation mattered. The validation in that room mattered for the response I got. And from then out, in other sort of quarterly meetings we had, I was more empowered to speak up more often. And it was it sounds like such a small moment, but it was a true pivot point for how I viewed myself. And that not only was my perspective important, that it was needed, and that it was needed to see the change that was required for us at that time and for that business and for the rest of my team in those meetings who are also feeling similarly about their place and their role to speak up. And so I think the small moments like that matter. And it doesn't have to be a massive moment of shift and change. It's the incremental, small little building block of confidence to feel seen and to feel heard, but also to recognize when others may not have the same courage I had to do the same, to change the space, to create more opportunity for others who don't process in the same way or who don't dominate the loudest voice in the room. And that's also been the way of truly understanding the humans in which we work with to know how and what they need to feel those moments of impact and to feel that shift that I had for myself.
Yeah, I would say there is something so powerful about finding your voice. And it doesn't matter like how, whatever, small it may seem that the situation is, it's the moment. Like it is a pivotal changing moment, not just for yourself, right? You find so much power in that and you see the change and impact that it brings. So you start operating in a different way. You start knowing I have to bring my voice. I have to use my voice, but you're not just impacting yourself. You're changing projects, you're changing outcomes, you're changing people, because it only takes like 2 seconds or one very small thing to inspire other people to say, if Amanda can use her voice and I see the change in the outcomes and I see the response and I even see, listen, even if the outcome didn't change, they see the change in you and how you've been able to operate in a different way, deliver in a different way. It's very, very impactful. So I love that you shared your moment. I love how it's changed your life. And then I love how it's impacted and changed lives down the line, because you said courage, right? Like it's hard to find that courage for the first time, but once you find it, no one can take it away from you. That's the deal, right? Once you find your voice, once you find the power in understanding how much value your voice brings, no one can ever take that away from you. They can take a job away from you. They can take a title away from you. They can take a project away from you. They cannot take your power and your voice. So I absolutely love that. I think who we surround ourselves also, right? Like we don't get to pick always our coworkers or our manager, but I think there are spaces that we can be intentional on who we surround ourselves with. And why I bring attention to this is that you very much become the product of what you consistently surround yourself with. And that's what you feed your body. So that could be food. It could be podcasts. It could be groups that you are around. And so I'd just like to know from your perspective, what incredible like community groups or national groups or different things do you do for yourself to really plug into a network that's continuing to feed you and help you grow to the next level?
Yeah, thank you. I am inspired by finding Slack channels where, and I'm happy to share them, where they're open source communities of practice that focus on equity within the space of product design, development, embracing practices like human-centered design that help to switch and flip the paradigm of how we think about collaboration and delivery. I think being open to looking at your LinkedIn network a little differently. I had someone reach out to me who I did not know, who just found my profile through a search and just was interested in having a talk with me. She was just intrigued to learn from a stranger, and I was inspired by that. Reaching out to someone who you are inspired by, even though you do not know, take the leap of faith. Do it. You will be surprised how much people want to help. And I think especially in the market today, we're seeing an inundation of access to, open job opportunities with a larger market of talent. And I think relying on the fact that your community wants to help you, ask for that help and don't be afraid to connect with people who you do not know. You will be surprised. And yeah, I think just also ingraining your space in adopting different frameworks and practices that you may not be using today, reading different sorts of like thinking of adopting design thinking through literature and through podcasts. I'm a huge Adam Grant supporter of the way that he thinks about leadership. And so, I think just rely on your network and don't be afraid to reach out to a stranger who you do not know. And find your local meetups and communities that are doing work like you are doing in the women in tech space. You'd also be surprised how local grassroots meetups, even if it's 5 people, can make a huge impact and change for your opportunity to connect and to expand your thinking in a space. So
I love it. I'll tell you, very few jobs happen anymore by applications. Like I know we go out there and we fill out the online rec, but the reality is jobs happen by relationship. And the reality is when a job is posted, mostly that manager already has someone in mind. And so how do you do exactly what you just described to be the person that people have in mind? How do you connect with different people, not people that just look like you or think like you or in the same circles as you are, but that you're challenging yourself to go outside of that, to get different perspectives, even when they're challenging, like even if it's a complete different perspective, like our perspective is our reality, not the reality. And so the more we can hear from other folks, we can get full spectrum perspectives. We can start, understanding that it's not just our thoughts and actions that really drive the power of change. And it's incredible. We are coming up on the end of the episode, my least favorite time of every episode, but we always leave with one question. And we always ask our guest to share one, if you could pick one, and that's hard because I think you've shared so many amazing nuggets, but if you could share one final piece of advice with our audience, especially around finding and using your voice, what would it be?
It only takes one moment to change how another person might perceive their value. And if you can find that one small moment, whether it be speaking up in a meeting that you don't necessarily have had the courage to do before, or reaching out to someone who you might notice may be struggling, do it. Find the ways to pay it back and pay it forward. You don't know whose voice you are paving a way to open up further and what kind of impact that might have on someone else to perceive themselves differently. Take the leap of faith.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. My cup is so full. I think that's my favorite part of these episodes is like I really get to connect with people that fill my cup. So I am super grateful that you were here. I know I always know that people we bring on, their schedules are incredibly busy, but thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We are greatly appreciative. And to our audience, thank you as usual for tuning in, for following us, for continuing to hopefully fill your cup with the topics that we bring forward that we know really matter, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a CEO, whether you're in tech or just want to know more about, it's a place for anyone and everyone. So thank you to each and every one of you guys. Continue to like, follow, subscribe, and we'll be back soon with another episode. You've been listening to the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for being here. If something resonated with you, please share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone you know that needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to catch what's next. We'll be back soon with more real stories and honest conversations. Until then, keep showing up and let's keep making space at the table.